I had to redo it because I looked up and saw where all it was streaming to, and for some reason it was streaming. I thought I had to set up to the right channels, but it was going out to all that football stuff. So
You can't go wrong with football.
no, you can't. But hopefully now it's on YouTube. It's on my personal Facebook. It's on Twitch, and I don't use Twitch, but I went ahead and set something up on Twitch, and it should have triggered on Twitter. But we'll see what happens, and we can definitely I can download this recording. It's recording also, and then we can clip it up. So
okay.
So what would you like to start with?
Well, I tell you, that's it's a lot of traffic in our community, and I'm speaking of our Surface Duo community, about the usability of our our duos and the way we use them, and I happen to be a early adopter for Duo 1 and an early adopter for Duo 2, if there is such a thing. So day one, I was a day one purchaser for Duo 1, day one purchaser for Duo 2. And some people would say I wasted a lot of money.
Right.
But I thoroughly enjoyed the product. So I think that the usability and, it's got, as some people would say, it has its quirks and features. But I have thoroughly enjoyed the product. I really have.
Right.
I think how we use it is probably one of the most critical things that people really want to know.
Exactly. For me, I wanted to early adopt the Duo 1. I was a little hesitant too. I used to be more of a camera snob than I am now today. And I let camera drive the devices a lot. So I ultimately decided to wait because I thought at that price point and the specifications of the camera, I didn't feel like I'd be happy. And I guess I was also eyeballing at the time this device here, this S21 Ultra that I have.
Yes, great device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great device. But you know what? I'm a little disappointed with it, to be quite honest with you.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's... Well, I'll mention about that later. But anyway, ultimately, I did jump on the Duo 1. I was a few months late coming in from you. For me, I used it as, you could say, my secondary device, but it really was my primary. It just didn't have the SIM card in it. Because as soon as I started using it, it was like, why I didn't want to go back to that candy bar form factor.
Yes.
So I was, the S21 is a 5G, so it gave me 5G, and that was another kind of a early holdback.
That makes sense.
So I treated my S21 as a hotspot to the Duo 1, and I set up, I used Google Messages pairing so that I could do my text messages from the Duo 1. I really didn't have to use the S21, but I carried it around because it was my hotspot, and I just didn't know. For me, like you, I pre-ordered the Duo 2. There was no question that it was going to be the device for me. I could look at the specs and see that there would be no need to even have the S21 around. Yeah. Now I sometimes still carry I carry the S21 because it's not hard for me to throw it in my back pocket, but do I use it? Harry, I actually use the Surface Duo 1 more than I do the S21 because I try to stay in tune with it.
You're staying in tune, right?
I'm staying in tune with it. So the Duo 2 is the main device, and I use the Duo 1. I try to get at least an hour of screen time with it a day.
Wow.
I find it's a usable device. It's not as
It is very. It is very.
yeah.
When
It's
when when it originally came out, I knew that I was going to purchase it, and I went to call Microsoft, set everything up to be delivered to me, and
Mhm.
it turns out that I didn't know what I was doing. I purchased what they termed the business version,
Right.
which I absolutely saw no difference. But they termed it the business version rather than the consumer. So I ended up buying that, and was so excited to have that form factor in my hand. Basically, for the first week, I probably overlooked the bugs. I don't even think I realized there was bugs in it because I was just so enamored with the form factor. And
Right.
so, uh, turns out after that first week, I was getting angry and you know having to flip around for the camera. The camera was not that great, but I was not a camera snob either. So because at that time I had other phones.
Hmm.
I think I had a Samsung S20 Ultra. I had an iPhone, and so I mean I had phones that could take pretty good pictures, and I didn't really buy it for the pictures, but that first week, I don't. My mind just checked out on the bugs. But after that, the bugs caught up with me, and they began to
Hmm.
update the device. And it took them some months. It took them 4 months, you know,
Yep.
5 months before the device really was a good. You could daily drive the device without much hassle. Now there were some things to get used to, which is the flipping up for the camera and
Hmm.
the acrobatics that it takes to do that. That was a getting used to. But by and large, I've enjoyed the Surface Duo 1. Now I in turn gave that to my son when the Surface Duo 2 came out, and I have been thoroughly impressed with the Surface Duo 2.
Yeah.
It has not been error free, but it has no more bugs than the next Android device. So
I agree. I agree with that. Maybe before the December actually even before the December update, it just seemed that. See, for me with devices, and one of the things that really irks me with online people, and especially over on Reddit, was all all this stuff about gestures not working and this and
yeah,
that. And like when you go from one device to another device, so if you go from an S10 Plus so I went from an S10 Plus to an S21 Ultra,
right.
and that's not a huge change, but that's a big change. And it took me a little bit of time to get accustomed to the keyboard. And even though it wasn't that much of a difference, it was still a slight difference. And,
It was
the first day or two, I had misses in type, or I don't type, I swipe. So I
okay.
had,
You better than me.
say again.
You better than me then, because
Uh,
swiping's tough for me.
See, I remember when the keyboard swipe came out, and my youngest son was, oh man, I don't, he's a geek, geek like his dad. Both my sons are, but he definitely was. And so he showed me swipe, and when I first looked at it, I was like, yeah, no, it took me probably 3 weeks before I decided to try it. And then it probably took me several more weeks before I could actually do it.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I'd spend a little bit of time on. I'm like, I got to get this message out, or I've got, so I'd go back to typing. But
Or taking too long. Yeah.
exactly. But now I can swipe with my. I don't even have to look at the keyboard to swipe.
Oh,
So
wow. You're good.
um, now I can't say I hit 100% doing that, but swiping is the way that I do things. But in seeing that, the very first thing when I picked up the Duo One, I noticed right away my swipes were I was missing swipes like crazy. I was using the full keyboard,
Yep.
um, and that keyboard's wide compared to even the keyboard on the S21 Ultra.
It's very wide.
It's very wide. So you're going to miss. It took me maybe a day to learn. And then I really worked on technique. That's why I did some of those videos on, technique, because
Yeah, you did.
you can make stuff work. I'm not saying you should have to put so much effort into it, but the question comes down to you want to use your device or not. And if you do, then learn to use it. Don't complain about it. Learn to use it. Don't say, well, other devices don't work this way. No two devices work exactly alike. There's going to be some little differences in their gestures, their response, but you learn to get over them. With the Duo, it's a bigger jump because of that form factor. But
I'm gonna put this on the screen. If you see
yeah.
here,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you only see part of my keyboard, but one of the things that I notice is I guess I could try to make that bigger. One of the things that I noticed is that
let me do this.
There you go. There we go. So I
whoops.
I think I got it. So one of the things that I noticed is that you mentioned that you only have to look at I guess you're kind of looking at the overall keyboard, but not at the specific letters. I find that for me, if I don't look at the specific letters, then I whatever I'm trying to type didn't work very well.
Right.
So I would do better to practice with the the swiping and things like that. It probably would help me tremendously. But still working to try to figure out how to make it work like I want it to.
Right. It's my whole thing that I learned early on was you need to get the keyboard size to what you're accustomed to start out, and then gradually increase it. Find a point. So that's what I did is I started it at a certain point. And I don't have it full screen now. On the Duo 2, I use one hand mode, and it's pushed over onto the right, and it's about a little over 3/4 width, maybe 80% width wise is what I'm comfortable with swiping. Okay. When I get it too far, I either fall short on some swipes or go over, so making that width and the height right plays a big factor in getting good use out of the keyboard. Now,
so you mentioned something that obviously I had not thought of. You mentioned making it 80%. And as I look at this, let's see if I can show this. As I look at this, I don't know if it shows on the screen very well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're full.
That's all the way across.
That's all the way across.
That's 100%. And I thought that bigger was better, but maybe I should really reconsider that because bigger may not necessarily be better.
Well, let me tell you what I think will help you. So I'm not a typer, but then when I started seeing all these things about typing, and I did those typing videos, I had to get myself back accustomed to typing. And what I found with typing is 2-thumb mode on SwiftKey.
Okay.
It takes a little bit because it splits the keyboard, but 2-thumb mode on a single screen, yeah. I found that to be faster to type.
Yeah, it takes a bit to get. I tried this too, and I haven't ruled it out, but it does take a different processing in your brain to make it work like you want it.
What you have to get your brain to think is that if you were typing on a real keyboard, your left hand's not going to go over to those keys that are on the right hand split, or they shouldn't. At least that's the way we learned to type. When I
Right.
was, you're probably old enough to have taken typing as well in school.
Yeah, they offered it. I didn't take it, but they offered it.
No, I thought I
The
had to
home
take
row,
it.
the home row key. I think you're talking about that. The spacing there.
Yeah. So I think if you keep yourself in tune with where your left hand works on a normal keyboard and your right hand, that split thumb mode separates those keys in that manner. Now, your brain has to get accustomed, because when you're normally typing on mobile devices, I think we just we just move a finger to whatever we think is the closest, and we don't really have an organization in our brain of how we do it.
True.
We might ultimately develop some kind of pattern, but I found myself, if I type, sometimes bringing that my left thumb way over where it shouldn't be. But that thumb mode, I found that to be pretty straightforward in typing, and I thought it made me more effectively use my two thumbs. So, Harry, today I read a study, because there was a person posted on Reddit about how the typing experience on the Duo had ruined his social life.
Really?
Yeah, it's probably a trolling post, but
Okay.
Because the person could not effectively type, and he's talking about missing so many types, that so many responses from the keyboard, that he was typing less. And today he actually threw out a number, and he said, it takes milliseconds. And my job, Harry, is I work in industrial automation.
Okay. Well, you know about milliseconds.
I know about milliseconds and microseconds. I have to deal with those, and I understand what processes and what humans could do. But I decided to read this study, and the most words per minute that a human can process on any kind of input is projected to be about 120 words a minute.
That's
And
interesting.
I read that from the guy who invented Swipe, actually. On mobile devices, the maximum words per minute, out of a study of 37,000 people, had 37,000 volunteers, 85 words a minute. They actually had one person that could do 85. The average is somewhere around 40 to 45. So at 85 words a minute, and 5 characters makes up a word when they calculate these things. That works out to, what was the number? 185 milliseconds a character.
Wow.
185 milliseconds a character, which is blazing fast, but that's really slow for a computer. That's really slow for digitized.
Unheard of slow.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but he mentioned, I say he, it could have been a she, mentioned that the haptics were slow. And the default setting on the keyboard is 10 milliseconds. So you get just a little slight vibration. It's not much of feedback at all when you touch it. Very little. You might even not realize that you touched it. And if you are actually looking for that feedback and your brain doesn't sense it, and it's, that sensory perception of that touch, it may think you've missed and may drive you into a bad output of the mechanics of your thumbs and things, because it thinks you're missing, but you really aren't. It's just interesting, some of the things I've learned about typing that I didn't think I'd ever want to know.
If I could change SwiftKey, I would like to have an option to move the space bar, because I find that on the keyboard the space bar is too close to the bottom row. I would like for it to be a few millimeters, centimeters, whichever it is, lower. Have
Lower,
more
not
gap.
higher. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can move it up by telling it to use the navigation arrows. That'll push it up further. But to pull it down, if you've got those navigation arrows turned off, there's no way to get it all the way down to the very bottom on the Duo that I've seen.
Yeah, I would like for it to go. Because what happens is when I'm typing, my thumbs, it's my thumbs, it's the culprit, are hitting the space bar when I'm trying to hit a letter that's on that bottom row.
Right.
And it could be a function of me not typing very well, or just, could just be terrible at this whole process. But I that's what I wish. If I could have any one thing that for SwiftKey be able to adjust, even, for example, even the height of the space bar. The space bar is huge. So if it was half height.
Do you ever provide, and I'm not talking about the feedback that's built into the Duo where you can go to the about and do feedback.
I've never done that either.
No. SwiftKey's got a forum. So you can actually go to their support site. And I have provided, so I provide feedback through the about. I've probably sent 30 or more things, most of them suggestions, but anytime if I encounter a problem and I can repeat it and I know it's not me, then I'm going to report it. Now, if I know it's me, like with SwiftKey, but it shouldn't be me. So, for example, I've probably reported 4 or 5 things that SwiftKey just absolutely could not swipe. I would swipe it with the most accurate swipe that I could, and it would come up with a different word. And it wouldn't even suggest the word that I wanted. Now, it came up with proper words, but it didn't come up with the word. So I reported that. I did that with probably 3 or 4 different words. So I've gone to the SwiftKey.
Did they correct it?
I want them to, yeah. I give feedback to the launcher people. Now, again, I've done launcher feedback through the about, but I've also done feedback through their email. And sometimes I post it on Twitter so that I can get a little attention. And they respond.
Yeah.
They have responded. Because I think the only way that we can get things the way we want them is we got to tell them. And I have experience back in 1989 timeframe. I started as a Microsoft beta tester.
Okay.
So
that's back in the MSDN days.
In fact, when I became an MVP, I got an MSDN subscription.
Yeah.
And they sent you all those CDs.
They did. I remember.
I had the universal subscription is what they gave us.
Wow.
So yeah, I had we got everything. Plus we got TechNet and we got a few other things. But in
TechNet, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So in '89, I worked for a company and I helped them test IBM OS2 and Microsoft OS2.
OS2 was good.
It was it had its place. Yeah.
It had its place. Industrial. Yeah.
It had its place. I ran a BBS. I became friends. Microsoft has a support center here in Charlotte. And so it turns out that one of the guys in my BBS community worked at Microsoft. And so I became friends with him. And next thing you know, I'm beta testing a lot of stuff for Microsoft. When I say beta testing, I don't mean this insider stuff. I mean, signing NDAs and
Yeah.
I got to the point where on Windows NT, Microsoft was sending me communication programs, DOS communication programs, to test, because they'd have a customer that was having a problem with something like Procom. It wasn't Procom. I forget which telecommunications software it was, but
man, I remember you bringing up all these names I know about.
All right, well, I'm gonna tell you one more thing, then I'll move on. If you get onto a Windows NT, or if you get onto a command prompt and you look at Xcopy and you look at your switches in Xcopy, there's a -Z switch.
Okay.
And that -Z switch will resume a copy if it breaks, say across a network. That's my switch.
Okay.
When I was beta testing Windows NT and we're doing this stuff with RAS. Do you ever work with RAS? Remote
No.
access, the dial-up service.
Well, okay, we didn't call it that, but yeah, remote. Yes.
So Microsoft called it RAS.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to him, I said, if you're connected, modems especially, you lose connections. And if I'm copying a file across that connection, I don't want to restart it. Not a gigabyte, a megabyte file. Back then, that was a lot. Remember?
Yeah.
Early 90s. A 1, 2, 3 megabyte file. I don't want to have to restart that over again.
Take forever.
So I explained to them the way that telecommunication software did it with modems, and we had a protocol called Z modem.
Yeah, I remember Z modem.
You remember Z modem? XY modem was faster, but Z modem was reliable because it could pick back up.
Yeah, error correction.
Error correction. So that's where that Z. That's why that Z for Z modem. That's where that Z switch comes from. Anyway, I don't know how we transgress all the way back. Oh, feedback. So I know from my past experience working with Microsoft that feedback is accepted and wanted. Today it's probably a lot different. I kind of broke away from all that stuff around 2000. My job was just becoming too consuming that I didn't have time to volunteer helping and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I know what it's like right now.
So I kind of broke away then, but I can't imagine it's really changed in feedback because I do get responses sometimes to my feedback. So your suggestion, what I'm saying is your suggestion on wanting to be able to adjust the keyboard.
I should make that suggestion. Huh?
You should suggest it.
That's a good. I mean, you're right. I think sometimes, and I'm going to give one to the naysayers. What happens, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, in a lot of people's case, they see a product, they determine to be a finished product, but no product is a finished product.
Not in the software world. That's right.
Not in software, not in really almost nothing. If it has a follow-on life, then there's some things that's going to be changed, improved, added to, whatever the case is, based on someone's feedback. That feedback could be internal, that feedback could be external, customer focus, could be supply chain focus, it could be a lot of things. But I think in a lot of cases people receive a product and they say, well, this product is finished, and they put it down or give it a negative rating, not realizing they can be the voice that make the suggestion to say, modify this Swift key to move the space bar or put more spaces between the keys. If you pick up an iPhone, I happen to have, this is an iPhone 12 Pro Max. You pick up this iPhone, I can type on it all day long and not miss anything.
Right.
When I look at the keyboard, I got this much space between the keys, But if I look at Swift key, as I look at it right now, the keys are this close together. So I have to be more accurate just simply because of where the keys are located. Doesn't mean the product is bad. Doesn't mean that it can't recognize what I'm saying. it's recognizing what I'm saying because the keys are they're too close together. So I think that case in point, you just made a great suggestion. I'm gonna go in there and make that suggestion. I'm sure as other people think about it, they're gonna probably plus one that to say that's a good suggestion. We can put, even if it's defined spaces plus or minus space between the keys, or more importantly, move the space bar at the bottom or the bottom row to further away from the letters. It's just lots of things along that line that I think would improve the typing experience.
I think having the ability to set the size of the keys and the spacing of the keys, obviously it's overall got to fit within the frame of what you set, but having that ability to say set to where you have a little more space, because I agree with you. It doesn't matter how wide you make SwiftKey, it'll make the keys bigger, but it still keeps them together.
Yep.
So the key may get bigger, but it's still right on top of each other.
Right.
So if I could say make it a full size keyboard, but then make the keys 3/4 what SwiftKey wants them to be.
Yeah,
that would put me some space in between them, and for people that need
That's
that
right.
or want that, exactly.
And the typing experience would be better for whoever else needs that besides me. So
And see,
another
like
thing.
that's not a hard thing for them to do. That what I just mentioned there.
Truth be told, you probably could hack it and make it do it yourself. You probably could hack it, in an APK and make that happen. But but that's my former years. But I think something else that let me see if I can't get my Zoom here. Something else that I think is a problem. One of the gripes of this keyboard is, this device is the, I guess they call it the glance bar.
Yeah,
that's on the side
notification bar, whatever. Yeah,
they have really made that notification bar of no effect.
Right. I could do without it, to be honest with you. Yeah, exactly.
Now if it was flat, if it was if it had the ability to show more information, such as a scrolling of notifications, then this would be more usable. This, in my, go ahead.
Yes, but think about that just 1 second, though. For you to have readable text there, think about how small that text is.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Are you going to be able to read it? Right. So
you could read it. I mean, one of the reasons why is because, as you see there, that bevel that's along there, is which is otherwise unusable. That bezel is the reason why it's there. However, I'm a software guy. I happen to know, because that is all screen, they could have did that differently. Being an old software developer guy, they could have done that differently, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
Right. No, I'm with you. See, for me, I think a lot of people are going to have to pick the device up to read anything that's there. And I think one of the lamest things I hear people say is how long, they make the complaint about having to open the device up, which is approximately a 1 to 2 second.
If that
operation, exactly, to open the device up. So you can have your lock screen display your important notifications. You can even, I did another video on that one, and keep sensitive content off of the lock screen, but you could have some of these notifications. So I don't know. and maybe I look at this wrong, but I just, in the end of the day, the only thing that I see useful out of that indicator area would be like the charge, the charge bar. I think that should be improved in that it shows you
all the time.
All the time, anytime you want, and it should show you that it's actually charging a different color.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
So you see it pulsing up or something.
Because right now you only see it when you unplug, which is dumb.
That's right.
So
plug it in or unplug it.
To your point, tell me what you think of this. As you look here, I put this credit card up here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I happen to know that an LCD, whether it's touch, or really even if you said a touch LCD, is pretty small. I would be willing to sacrifice 1 millimeter thinness, okay, in order to put that touch on the back side of this. So what happens is you no longer need this bar. If you had a panel here, maybe move the logo down here to the corner or something, but you had, this panel here.
You don't have to move the logo, because what you could do, you could display the logo.
Oh, absolutely. Million things. You could do a million things. But this right here makes this device, people buy this device. Now, the problem they're going to have is that people are going to say it's expensive. Well, they're all expensive. I mean, listen, I happen to be in supply chain business right now, and I can tell you everything's expensive. Everything. So,
right.
So, this here primarily is a main board in here with a few other components and a giant battery. But I'm gonna tell you, it wouldn't be hard. This camera bump would shrink. In other words, it wouldn't be as protruding because you're gonna eat up 1 millimeter of that with thickness.
Right.
And you're gonna have a screen on the outside like you see now with the competing devices. All of them have an outside screen.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. It's not a one of them. Even the ones that we can't get here in America have an outside screen. So you're gonna end up with that. And I happen to think that's the best practice for success. But who am I?
No, I agree with you. I've thought about where that could go on the device, and it could certainly go on the front where the logo's at and be the logo.
Yeah.
Be at the top of the device, the bottom of the device, however they want to do it. And it could give you more indication. Now, what we got to think about is, and I think this is where this group has a hard time.
Target audience.
Is a lot of the people that are right now are using a Surface Duo. This is what they were using before. If you can see that.
Very true.
That's a 950 XL here.
That was a great phone, man.
It was a great phone. It is a great phone. I love it. This is it's on my list of favorite devices for sure. But a lot of people are thinking of this, and I don't use. I try very hard not to use the word phone, because I don't view these devices as phones. Way back when I was using this, Harry, this right here, this HTC Tilt.
Oh yeah, you got the classics.
Yeah. So back in this day, with Windows Mobile, it's my belief that Microsoft was going in the right path. And then when they went to Windows Phone 7, they jumped off the path. But the people that are buying the device primarily are those people. And I'm talking, I should say the general public consumption. I don't know what kind of push Microsoft's been able to have within businesses to get some businesses to adopt using it.
I would suffice it to say very minimal. And I say that because I happen to be a Panos Panay person that reads his stuff, and that there is a fine line between brilliance and arrogance. For example, I happen to believe Microsoft, being the company that it is, should put its full weight behind the product. Now, let's draw a parallel. Xbox, for the last 20 years that it's been in existence, I verified, has never made money.
Mm-hmm.
Every console that is sold at a loss. So you go into your local store, you pay $3.99 or whatever the number is for the latest Xbox. You walk out the door with a gaming machine that you're going to have probably for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In my opinion, this device here, very good device, should be $9.99. Or if they really want to hit the industry hard, $7.99. It doesn't. You're Microsoft. You have to make a market penetration. And the way to do that is you put the support behind it. You practically give it away for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years until it becomes a superior device.
Now, I agree. There's, of course, one issue there.
Yep.
And that's the FTC and dumping. So you have to be cautious at what your price is compared to what competition is and assumed costs. I worked for Mitsubishi Electric for 20 years, and
okay.
I'm well aware of dumping issues. Now, the groups that I worked for, we never had any dumping issues, but some of their sister companies did, even though they claimed they weren't dumping. So I've a little experience with how the FTC handles those things.
But would it be considered dumping when you had the market leader, Samsung, making 12, 15 different devices every year of all spectrums? You have iPhones being sold by the hundreds of millions every year. I mean,
so would it be considered dumping? So what you'd have to do, what they would do, Harry, is they would have to look at the device and say, okay, where does this device fit with these competitors? Well, obviously, Apple's got nothing like it, but it doesn't matter. They would throw out the high-end iPhone. Samsung, it would be the, at a minimum, like the plus products, not maybe not an Ultra, but a plus product somewhere in that Note. But then again, you could argue, and now the Ultra is going to be the Note, so they could probably even argue that might even be the competitive product, and you got to look at its pricing. But I agree with what you're saying. And if you look at that group that's now making the device, and the people who are handling it, it's not the same people that handled this Nokia product. It's not the same groups of people. Now it's in the Surface group. And
yeah, which is, I don't know if that's good either.
Well, the one thing that's good about it is the product doesn't have to make money for them to.
That's true.
Keep making it.
And I think that's smart.
It can't be a flop like the Surface Book was. Surface Book was so cool, but I'm like, who's ever going to use that as a tablet? It's too big. I don't want to hold it in my hand. I buy Lenovo Yogas, and you know what? I never use them. I don't use them in their yoga form of flipped all the way around. They're too big. I don't want something that big. My Surface Pro that I have, 12 inches is about as big as I want. And it's even kind of big to be holding as a tablet.
Yeah.
But
I have a Pro. I have a Pro LTE.
Uh-huh. I like my Pro. Now, because of what I do, I mainly have to have a laptop.
Okay.
And I mainly need a little more screen space than a Pro has, because I do some in the industrial automation. I do some of the HMI stuff as well, so I need some graphics. but I use my Surface Pro mainly for note taking. I hate to say that, but my Surface Pro is easy to pull out and use as a tablet and read things and note taking. Well, this Surface Duo is perfect for the two items I just mentioned. But what I was going to say is the Surface Pro is a somewhat successful type product. It may not be a huge moneymaker. I don't know what kind of money make, but it's enough that they'll keep making it. Surface Book was not. Now, my belief is that the future's going to be very heavily services based, and Microsoft's obviously moving even their products or desktop products. They're moving them to services. Office 365, and so everything's going services based, and I believe the competition knows this, and you're going to see devices are going to kind of get latched into the services, and
that's true.
So I think money maker. Yeah, Microsoft could be in trouble if they did not have devices that could attach into their services, because then Google can say, for example, can continue to move up, and while Microsoft is bigger in the cloud right now than Google, and they're chasing Amazon, if they're not careful, Google could pull together the right devices that marry greatly with their services. And just like, do you remember back as about 14 years ago, maybe somewhere in that 14-year ago frame, Google said that OS didn't matter. It was going to be about the apps. I don't know if you remember. And what is happening?
I never heard them say that, but I can understand the premise.
They said the future is going to be about apps, not about the OSs. Now, Microsoft still owns a desktop OS, but look what's happened in the mobile space. It was about apps. That's what kept those Nokia Windows devices from becoming adopted, was apps. But I'm with you. I think they should try to. The device needs to be, as it stands right now, it should be a $9.99 device.
Yes,
$9.99 to $12.99, somewhere in that range. $12.99 tops.
I'm with that.
I think
you get wider adoption. As a guy who's dabbled in business, and I'm a business guy to my heart, computer person in my bones, and as a person who's trying to bring products to market, you market. And listen, Microsoft has smarter people than me, but this device needs market penetration, and it needs commercials that show people doing unique things that are not cameras, because the rest of these devices, when you see this, every commercial that you see about an iPhone is about a camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about all the other whiz bang things that they've done that this can do. It's about these three knots on the back. When you this happens to be a OnePlus 8T Pro, you never see a commercial about these devices here. Mm-hmm. Because these devices are enthusiasts. The person that buys this already knows about it. They already know it's got the fastest processor. You can go in, customize the OS to do whiz bang things and your heart's desire. This right here is not going to let you do that, but it's going to work every single time. It's going to work you're never going to have to worry about this not working. It's going to work every time. And so this is somewhere in the middle, in my opinion, very powerful device, but the marketing sucks. You don't reach the audience, number one, that can buy it. I mean, I paid $1,539 for this device. Day one. First day it was available, went right out there and paid cash. But I mean, so that's just not everybody.
That's right.
No cell phone companies carry this where you're going to get on an EIP plan for $31 a month for the next 2 years. They're not doing it. So what you have to do is you gotta shoulder the cost, Microsoft. You got to bring features that are unique and reliable to this device that are different from this, because you can't go head to head with this is a great camera, in my opinion. For the average user, this camera is going to do more than what you want it to do.
For the majority, I'd say actually for the majority of users, yes.
Yeah, you know, so unless you're trying to shoot ProRes, like I know you like to shoot ProRes, I happen to think ProRes is too big, but I'm okay. You know, so just give me a PNG or a JPEG, I'm good. But this right here needs to be marketed, needs to have features that support that person that's getting on the airplane every week, going to work in diverse cities and doing super things. And hey, this is your only device. Take your portable keyboard and this phone, and now you've got the full suite of the Office products that you use. I mean, I would be just pouring my marketing into travel ready, 5G, NFC. I mean, but in my opinion, this is going to sell, but it's not going to sell as well because we don't talk the good features.
So I see we had actually a comment, and I'll probably need to address something about
on Twitch,
how we're set up for. Yeah, exactly. To answer or to you raise a good point, and if you think back, they did that with Windows Phone. They had some great marketing commercials. Remember the iPhone and the Samsung people fighting each other, and their problem, of course, it didn't matter in that era. It didn't matter what kind of marketing they did. They didn't have developer app support. So
they didn't have the apps. That's right.
People were not going to do it. I remember getting a Windows that 900 for my daughter, and she loved it. It had a great camera. Everything was great. She really liked the phone, but
it didn't have Instagram.
At the end of the day, after 5 days, she said, I want to take it back because it didn't have Words with Friends and that draw. There was a draw app that, you draw something and someone else would draw, and it didn't have those two apps. So she didn't want it. And like it or not, that was the era that we were in. And
you're still in it too.
we're still in it, but at least they've got a product now that can give the apps. You don't fall aside with the apps. Now you got to show the productivity part of the device. I think the price can be adjusted, but I don't think the price could be adjusted. They probably, I have no idea, but I bet they didn't make 5,000 of these.
You know what? I would think from a production standpoint, you had to have a minimum 100,000 order to crank.
I don't know. Machine. See, they couldn't make 500 or 1,000. They might. They had.
I would like to know the answer to that.
See, they already had the tooling and everything set up. Probably only had to make minor modifications to the line to go from a Duo to a Duo 2.
I mean, who's the actual presser? Foxconn?
I don't know. I've worked with Foxconn personally, but I don't know who the OEM is that makes these. Microsoft uses several OEMs to make the Surface devices. I did some research back several months ago. I couldn't find who makes the device, but I didn't dig deep. So I don't know who the actual OEM is. You're going to have minimums, as you know, in the screens that you buy of the processors. And the fewer that you buy, the higher your cost is going to be.
I see where you're going at. I see where you're going.
Right. So if they could get into a million unit, or even 500,000 to 1 million production, then the price definitely can come down. So I think that they can get their price there, but right now they've got to get the mind share. They've got to start developing some mind share with the right people, and the right people needs to be business people, not these Windows Phone enthusiasts that want another, they want a Surface phone, so they want a slab of some sort.
Yep.
Not saying Microsoft shouldn't eventually in the future make a one-screen version of a Surface Duo, but the key thing would be to keep the form factor, because if anybody takes that device and starts reading on it, you're not going to want to. You're going to struggle to go back.
Yeah. And I don't never read on my. Oh, I read things like Reddit and things like Twitter and all that, but I don't read books on it. I don't write on it. But it's my daily driver. I use it for whatever I'm doing daily. Mm-hmm. And I have two other options that I can very easily use. But you bring up a great point. But this is kind of where I'm going with that. You see this device? This is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 LTE.
Yep.
Fantastic. I've had this tablet for 2 years. Fantastic tablet. Fantastic. Great media consumption. Great to perform whatever. DeX. Samsung DeX is in here. Plug it into a monitor or plug a mouse into it and use DeX on the device. And just the case in point, they don't market it either. So the only thing in terms of tablets we ever hear anything about is an iPad.
Right.
That's all, we don't even, many people don't even know there's something else that's better. It depends on what you're doing. A lot of people they have no idea. They don't even know because nobody told them. Nobody showed them. Nobody. You don't see a Samsung commercial on the tablet.
No, for about 8 years, 7 years. When I worked at Mitsubishi, for a while, we provided our own devices, and then they told us we had to have BlackBerries, and then we told them, said, you're going to have to provide the BlackBerries then. And
I had one of those.
So I did BlackBerries, and actually on my Tilt, I ran a BlackBerry app, which IT didn't know for a year that I didn't have a BlackBerry. Because it worked like a BlackBerry, and the BlackBerry management server saw the Windows Mobile as a Windows mobile phone, but it saw it as a BlackBerry. But I had iPhone and iPad, and ultimately I bought a small Surface. First, I tried the Surface RT, and then I got the Surface 3. Little 10-inch Surface 3 to use instead of the company provided iPad, because I couldn't do the things I needed to do even for my business, which was effectively read PDFs, manuals. I could do it better on a Windows device.
Yeah, for some reason you're right. So
the Samsung tablets are really nice. We've got my wife an S8 tablet. She has a Buick Enclave, and hers was 1 year before the head units supported Android.
Yeah.
So I actually bought it so that she could. She loves the car and doesn't want to change it. So I bought that tablet to run Android Auto on it. Or run Android Auto on it, so she could have a better mapping, more modern mapping.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think what you were saying there, if we had, and maybe that's where that Neo was going to go, was to give some kind of a tablet experience. Unless that may ultimately come out still. I guess we'll wait and see, but
we'll see.
I think a single slab device is potentially something that could be available in the future. I'd like to see something actually the size of a passport.
Wow.
The physical size of a passport. take and grab your passport and
that's pretty
because it's got the same form factor though. It's a very similar form factor. So reading on it, that could make and if that were single screen, I think that would make
So this is just like the BlackBerry size that once was.
Yeah.
The BlackBerry Passport.
But I think they got to get to that next. They got to get this device accepted, which means they need to get more business people enthused about it, and showing a guy getting up in the morning.
Yep.
Running to the airport, doing his stuff, going to see his client. Now, let me tell you something about this 950 XL. One of the coolest things that happened. I had to meet actually I had to meet an FBI agent. That was a whole interesting story behind it. But he said, let's meet at Starbucks. So I went to Starbucks, and he was running a little late, and I'm sitting there at Starbucks working on my 950 XL, and there's a young lady in there, and she looks over and she says, "That's a 950 XL, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I got one too." And I said, "Well, that's cool." She said, "How do you like Continuum?" I said, "I love Continuum." And then she proceeded to tell me how she used Continuum with customers. She did a lot of SQL stuff, and
very
so
good.
she proceeded to explain how she used Continuum. I've never had that experience anywhere else with the 950 XL. I had a few people on planes. They'd see the Microsoft logo on the back of the phone,
right?
And they would ask about it, but there wasn't really any kind of engaging conversation. But the point here is she would have made a great commercial in use of the product. So they need to do that. Show the business person going to the airport, doing their things, checking in their flight, checking their emails, maybe working on some documents or something, getting on the plane, flying to wherever, getting off, taking care of things, maybe doing a presentation, do a PowerPoint presentation. I did a PowerPoint presentation with you remember the Atrix? Were you familiar with the Motorola Atrix?
No, no, I'm not.
That was the first phone with a built-in real thumbprint, fingerprint sensor.
Okay.
It had an HDMI output. I did a PowerPoint presentation from it.
Wow.
It was the worst experience I've ever had, but it was cool. It was cool. They need to do that kind of stuff. I agree. I don't mean to shift gears too much, but I wanted to show you, Harry, look here. Look what came today.
That's your case.
That's the case. Now, I wish I had my other camera, but if you take a look at this case, if you can see this, tell me if you can see that there's an edge, a lip right here. You probably can't see it.
The contrast is
yeah.
I can see it's dark. I can't really tell what's there.
Yeah. So there's a lip on this back side which pushes it up. This is not a protective case. If this would be a case, it would fit and sit instead of a skin, but you can't fold the device all the way back because this doesn't fit all the way down. So I'm going to take an X-Acto knife tonight and trim that down and trim that little lip off the back of it.
And you believe that's going to make it?
It might make it work where it can fold all the way back. I think it might. This is similar to what I want to 3D print, except for the outer edge here, the bumper part. This is just I don't know if it's much more protective. I mean, less protective than what the Surface Duo 2 bumper. It's probably a little less protective, but I want to make that and put honeycomb in it. I want to make something bumper size with a honeycomb design inside it. Now, I don't know how much you know about mechanics, but
Yeah, strength.
Do what?
Honeycomb provides strength.
It'll provide some strength, and it'll be able to collapse and disperse the energy horizontally down the edge versus vertically straight into the edge. So I think it can both it can help disperse the energy, so give you some shock. Because if you look at a duo, your damage is going to come on the edges. An edge is going to hit.
Because if it's closed, especially.
Exactly. I mean, you might get a flat land, but and if you get a flat land, as long as nothing protrudes into it like a rock, I don't think it would crack. That glass should be able to handle that more, but a shock to the edge, that's a lot of force in that one small.
That's a lot of force.
Yeah.
That's a lot of force. Some other people on YouTube have gotten their cases where in from was it Norvey, New Orvey, leather cases, and they were, they thought that the quality of the leather was good, but not that
that French case. Yeah.
Yes.
You can't fold it back. I don't know why.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. To me, what you're talking about is right. If you just had two independent pieces that clipped onto both sides, you'd be able to, at a very minimum, do that.
Right.
And that's all you're asking. I don't know why that would be. So I have a 3D printer. Maybe I'll explore looking it up on the thingery and see if we can't 3D
So
print
somebody
something.
posted today on Reddit a case. Now their case has a few flaws. Their case does not cut. Their case covers up the USB port. It's made to slide on. This snaps on actually.
So they printed it. That's what you're saying. They
printed it. The one that's up on that I saw on Reddit today. Is that what you're talking about
right now?
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about. I just mentioned it from a logical perspective. I actually did not know there was one on Reddit.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that people have done, but this one, they covered up the USB port. What else did they do wrong with it? That was probably the biggest thing. And his response was, you can slide it off when you want to charge, but who wants to do that?
Nobody.
And if you use a Duo like I do, you're charging during the day. I don't get up in the morning and then go to bed and charge it at night. I have to charge it some during the day. But I thought about taking that. They got it on Thingiverse.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Thingiverse.
It's a pretty neat design. I think I would maybe look at that. I don't have a 3D printer, so I'm thinking I want. And I think you would need to do what I'm talking about, a resin printer. You have a resin?
Softer.
A what?
It's that material is softer. My printer supposedly,
but it's more precise. Do what now?
Yeah, mine's extruder. But it supposedly supports those soft types of filaments. But every time I've tried to print using TPU or something like that, I just haven't had the best results on a wide scale. I can do one or two things. It seems to work out okay. But, you can perfect anything if you spend time with it. And I just don't care enough about it to spend time with it.
No, I understand. I think something like what I'm holding in my hand is very close. It needs that it needs that cushioning along the edge here. And I think a honeycomb design would would provide that. Um, I would love to be able to model this first and model the force, and see how to make sure of the design, and maybe how many tubes of honeycomb, because I was thinking maybe a layer of like 3 and 2, something like that, 3 and 2, or maybe 3, 2, 3. Not just one honeycomb all the way down, but a couple of. But you don't want to get it too thick.
Right.
So I don't know how small a honeycomb you could print. I don't know if you could print a millimeter tall honeycomb. Because that's about what you'd be talking about. You wouldn't want to add more than a couple of millimeters over what, say, the current bumper. The Microsoft's bumper is a pretty, I think it's probably, if you could print something similar to it, similar material, and put a little honeycomb in it, and who knows, that might have, I don't know. I think you could get a pretty sturdy device, a pretty sturdy impact cushion.
So I'm looking at the Reddit article with the picture of the guy with the case.
Now, which case? There's about 3 of them up there.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is not the one, because this is pretty low resolution here. So
the one that I'm talking about is not the guy holding the case.
Okay, he's not holding it.
That one's not. That one you can tell is a very poor resolution print.
Very poor. So this is the Autobox. Let me see what this says.
If you sort on you, it was posted this morning or last night.
So this was posted yesterday, and this is obviously a case that's been 3D printed, but this looks like you said slides on. This may slide on. It looks like.
Is it blue?
It is blue.
Yeah, so that's the one.
The render is blue, but of course the product that he printed is orange or red or some color like that.
Yeah, he said that exactly. It's kind of a red. He said that it slides on because once somebody immediately responded, so do you have to take the case off to charge it? And he said, yeah, but if you're chilling at home on the couch, you don't need the case on it.
Yeah, see all that. So if he made this, he could put a hole in there for charging.
Exactly. You could. Or, so I think put a nice cutout there. Microsoft kind of did it right with the 2 pieces, because it allows, I use a magnetic charger, and those are a little bigger than your
they are bigger. Don't have to be, but they're bigger.
Right.
If Microsoft would incorporate that in their design, you'd solve a lot of problems.
You would solve a whole lot of problems. I don't know why they don't think about that.
Well, they probably do. They just not.
They could put a 24 pin, which would give them full USB 3.2. They'd fully be able to use the USB data, fast charging. And yeah, they could. There's standard pieces out there and standard connectors. So, I think that would be a wise thing for them to do with the next version. At least they went with USB 3. It took them forever to do that on the Surface. But that would solve a lot of problems. Now, I've not had a problem with my Duo 1 or my Duo 2 with the port. Now, I've had a magnetic adapter in my my Duo 1 for almost its entire life.
Have you found that the cables break?
What cables? For the
cable that connects to the magnetic insert.
So far, no. What I have found, I think, is that maybe the magnet might be getting a little weaker than it was when I first got it. I would like for the magnet to be a little stronger than what it is. I find if it gets in too easily in at an angle, it'll pop it off.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
So
In fact,
I'd like to see a stronger magnet on it, but no, the magnetic adapter is the way to go. I don't think there's any question. I had someone that argued, not argued, but maybe debated with me a few times about how you were putting just as much potential of damage by leaving a connector in all the time. But I don't
how
think,
so?
yeah, because it's there and you might hit it. But the thing is that when you look at every USB 3 cable, I'll grab this one here. They all have a huge end. So I'm holding this thing up. Hopefully people can see it and they know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of lever here.
Yes.
So that's if you don't pull completely straight out, there's so much lever here that it makes it easy to exert force on that very thin. I mean, no question that it was too thin. They needed more material there. But people damage ports on, just ports on USB have been doing that forever. Now we've got a bigger lever.
That's true.
So
it's very true.
I think so his argument was that, well, you've got that. I leave the magnetic adapter plugged into my Duo all the time. The only time it comes out is when I get in the car and I do Android Auto, and that's just because I don't have another cable there that I can use. So sometimes I take my cable with me so I can use it, but it does work over Android Auto. That's not a problem.
Well, many of the cases, the manufacturers offer the pins for the different types, so you could use one or two cables everywhere you go. But
yep,
I find that inevitably, if that's a word, that when I have the magnetics in either phone that I have with me, I don't have the right cable. So I end up pulling it out using the backup, which is the USB 2 or Lightning, whatever. Yeah.
Yes, that's something I'd like to see in the next version would be the magnetics built into it. I'd like to see the product made out of the same material Surface is made out of.
Do you find that the plastic ring or the frame around the Surface Duo 2 is as durable or more durable than Surface Duo 1?
Well, having had a problem with the Duo 1, I don't know. It looks like the material might be slightly different. It's some kind of polycarbonate, but I don't know the properties of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's easy to melt because there are certain resins that I've found melted like it's just, so if you break it, there's certain resins you can buy off the shelf. Put a little drop on there and it melts it all back together like it never was broken. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
I assume it's a polycarbonate though. And I got used to polycarbonate phones with the Lumias. And to not having to have a metal phone, although I just have this personal of the look of so I took my Duo 1, I got the brushed silver skin and put on it, so it looks exactly like my Surface does. And when I buy Samsung devices, I usually get silver. I do have a couple of gold ones that I bought, but
Really?
I usually like to get the silver if I can, just because that's my preference. And um, I always purchased clear cases so that you could continue to see the device.
The device?
Um, the good thing about a metal is that it's not going to be as brittle.
And that's
Now,
and that's where the iPhone shines,
right.
because this ring around this phone is strong as all get out.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's I personally I like a heavy phone. For some reason, it helps me hold the phone better. I can
Yeah.
type better on the phone. I don't know why, but uh, this phone also has an aluminum ring, but it's harder to type. So I had to go put a skin on the phone to grip it better, because the way this is shaped, and
Uh-huh.
this just harder to, although it's skinny. We talk about the, what is it, the Fold 3.
Mm-hmm.
This phone here is probably not much different. You want to know the truth? This is, fits in one hand. You grab it real quick, go out the door. It's just pure Google for the most part. So I mean, it's all right. I'm probably gonna give it to my wife, but it's all right. So I mean, but I like that heavy. I like a heavy, rugged phone. That's the reason I like the Duo 2, because it's heavy.
It's heavier. Yeah, right, exactly. It feels more substantial.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that's one of the pluses about the S21 Ultra. The negative is you got to have a case on it or a skin.
Slipper in it.
That is a slick phone. It'll slide right out of your hand. It's hard for me so I'm naked on mine right now, and it's hard for me
Yep.
to hold it and type on it because it's sliding around all the time. It's worse than a
Yep.
Duo
Yep.
is. But having that bulk, that feel, that weight, yeah, that's definitely there's a mental thing about it. I get it. I get what you're saying, because I agree.
Well, I think if it didn't cost so much, you probably wouldn't feel some. Generally, when something costs a lot, we have a tendency to think that it should be better, and it does. It should be. Cars
We
that we
don't
pay a
want,
lot of money for, we think will do things that cars that didn't pay money. It's the kind of same concept. But
so so people don't understand that the costs are not much different in doing a polycarbonate and a metal. They really
probably
aren't.
not.
We're talking the quantities that we're talking and all. It's not a huge difference. Not something that would drive a price of a phone up tremendously. I know this from so I worked for a manufacturer. We made robots and programmable controllers, and
Yep.
and the materials and all. There's advantages to using polycarbonates because of the things you can do with it, and it's easier to mold
Absolutely right. Less
to a
material
shape.
waste. Doing manufacturing, you're 100% right.
Exactly. So the cost, it's not a cost thing as much as it is there's some other advantages. But I personally, of all the devices, I like the way a Surface is made. And I had the best story with the Surface. It was my RT Surface, which if I wanted to be mad, I could be mad at Microsoft, because I stood in line to get that RT on release day.
I had one of those.
It's one of
sold
the
it.
most useless products I've owned.
Yeah.
It was slow, but I was coming down our stairs and our forays in a stone, and I was about halfway down the stairs. They're wooden stairs, and making the bend, I was in my socks and I slipped, and my Surface flew up and landed on a corner of it. You couldn't ask for a worse hit. And it probably reached an elevation about, I'd say 6 foot. You know, so the fall was probably from about 6 foot up down, landed on the corner. And the only thing that happened was part of the metal chipped off about half the size of your little fingernail, the width of it. Did not break the screen, did not damage the device. And I had Microsoft Complete, and they replaced it. And it's sitting up there right now. The most useless product I've bought ever.
Well, you should take and put Linux on it. It probably run better.
Is there a mod out there to do that? I thought there was a mod to put ARM on there, to put Windows ARM on there.
Well, there may be. I haven't. I got rid of my ARM-based RT a long time ago. So at that point, I stopped following it. Now, I have toyed with the fact of picking up a Pro X. But, I have not, for a lot of reasons. But number one, I just don't have a justification. I don't,
Yeah, we had a mic. We had a Microsoft store here in Charlotte, and I went.
Best thing ever. They closed them down.
Yeah, best. Like I bought my 950 XL on launch day as well. Stood in line for it, but the line wasn't as long.
Yeah, I had one here in Maryland, and they closed it, and it was a good one too, boy. But they had all the highfalutin stuff in there that called waste your money on. But they said they were closing them all, so they did. They closed that one.
Ours was almost right across in the mall, right across from the Apple store. The Apple store was on the other side, within one store away. It was real close to it. Let's see here. I don't know how long you want to go.
Well, we get ready to close it up.
Yeah. I'd like to do this again if you would. And maybe be more specific on some things. We've kept 3 viewers. I don't know.
Well, good. Were they all on Twitch or were they on?
I don't know. And I don't know if they're all the same viewers. It's telling me 3, so I'm really surprised there was anything on Twitch. That's the first time I've ever seen anything from Twitch, and that might actually be my son-in-law. Usually these things come in from YouTube and maybe Facebook, but I don't know. Do you feel like doing another one?
Sure, absolutely. We can do another one anytime. I am a techie. I'm probably in the next few weeks. I'm toying with the idea of buying a S3.
Are you?
Yeah. We'll see. It's all about price to value. If I get a good value on one, I'll buy it. I'm not going to pay full price. And I really don't need it. But but as I mentioned, my OnePlus is probably going to graduate to the wife, and that will leave me with only one Android device, and I always have more than one Android device. So I'll have to replace that with something. And at the moment, I have no Samsung phone, so I'm considering that.
You're like me. My daughter took a picture of me one time. I had in my hand. I didn't know until she showed me the picture. I had in my hand holding 3 phones.
Yeah.
So I was standing there waiting as they were doing some shopping, and I had an iPhone, a Lumia 1020, and it was maybe the S4. Was that my Android phone at that time? Samsung S4, maybe. I can't remember, but I always kept an Android since the Android came out, and I always had a Windows Mobile or a Windows Phone. And then I either had a BlackBerry or an iPhone. And I've got more phones laying around me than I know what to do with right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Generally, I give them to somebody or away or something, and or I sell them. But there's certain things that I hang on to for other reasons. Like I'll probably keep this iPhone 12, because I do some videoing for church and stuff like that, and it's really good for that. Different phones have different strengths.
Isn't your S20 Ultra good for that?
I think sold the S20 Ultra.
Do what now?
I got rid of the S20 Ultra.
Oh, you got rid of it. Okay.
Yeah, and so what it is, I have a subscription package to Switcher Studio, which is iOS only. So I have a few iPads and the iPhone 12, 2 iPhone 12s, and that's primarily what we use to switch and views and things like that for. But one day if that ever comes to Android, or be able to mix and match, which would be the best thing, Android, that would be great. That would be great.
It ain't gonna happen. Apple's not ever gonna open up their closed.
You ain't gotta tell me. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Probably not.
I lived through all that Microsoft getting hit by the DOJ all the time, and or FTC, for monopolizing the market. And how do they not consider iOS a monopoly?
It's beyond me.
With Android, you can at least, there's multiple manufacturers of Android devices, but you can't make.
That's right.
You and I could have $1 billion and we couldn't make an iPhone.
That's true.
Competitor. We couldn't do it.
Not unless you're in China.
Exactly. Not unless
you're in China. You can build all you want to.
we can build them and sell them in China. Exactly. But to try to build something here and sell it, we can't do it. We'd have to buy Apple. We'd have to have the ability to buy Apple to do.
Yeah, that's impossible. I tell you, one of the things that I settled on later in life. Well, not later in life, but really as a function, is I happen to be a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and so you would identify with that, being in the industry that you're in, and
yeah.
These types of devices, when it comes to technical people, are fantastic. Now, here's the problem. Speed. The device itself is fast, but in that moment when you're in crunch time to do something, that's when this device starts getting on my nerves, and that's when you start reaching for something like this. That's easy to get to quick. Going through the security line at the airport, you're trying to pull up your barcode to scan for the TSA lady, your right. TSA check, and you got to flip and all that, and you hit the button, and and stuff's not, you're opening the wrong thing because you're having to use two hands instead of one. I mean, it's.
What? I had I used to have the ability to put my boarding pass on my lock screen.
Yeah, they changed that. Now it's in Google. It's in Google Pay.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't fly anymore. I have not flown. Now I try not to fly. I don't like flying.
Well, it's a hassle. It's a hassle.
I've flown, over 500 flights, and since I started my business, I've flown very little, mainly because most of my business is within driving to an extended drive where I could have maybe flown, but I still drove. But
yeah.
I don't go to California or Mexico or Canada or Japan. I don't do any of that stuff anymore, so I don't really fly. And before, I'd even fly from North Carolina to Tennessee. But you had the ability to put your boarding pass. I know that went away because that really bugged the heck out of me. You could put your boarding pass up on your lock screen and very easily get to it. I was just thinking this other screen that you were talking about, that we talked about earlier, that'd be another good use for that screen would be to have
Excellent. There are so many use cases for outside appearance. I'm gonna call it outside appearance. There are so many use cases that I just don't see how that can be cost prohibitive. Maybe it is, but I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't know. That's hard to say. You got to have another display driver. You got to have another. The screen part's not that expensive, and you just got to decide whether you got a digitizer on it or not. If you're going to just have it display things, or are you going to have any touch input?
Yeah.
But even a digitizer is not going to be that expensive. A small digitizer. So I don't know. It can't add manufacturing costs more than 25, 30, maybe $40. I don't know.
I don't think that, but maybe. I wouldn't put.
I'm going on the high end. I'm going on the high end. If you're making millions of these things, then that cost is going to be. People don't realize how inexpensive this stuff can get.
Oh my goodness!
When you start talking quantity,
you're right.
Well, I enjoyed this. It's
well. I think we were kind of random, but yeah, it was our first time out.
Yeah, we didn't follow a script or anything, and probably should have. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to fill each other out too, and make sure you'd want to do it with me again.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there a compatibility? And I think there is.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. You should maybe you should make a commercial. Film yourself going through, because when you were posting you posted your selfie, and
yeah, I could do it, but I just have not. Actually, I never thought of it.
And then say, "Look, Microsoft, here's my day, a day and how I
use it. On the road with Duo."
Exactly, on the road with Duo.
Yeah. I would probably want somebody to film me. Well, I don't know. It's something to think about. It's something to think about.
It is something to think about. Exactly. So we didn't get a Duo 1 update today, and I don't know if we're going to get one this week.
I'm going to tell you, dude, you know what? I see all the people anxious to get the Android 11. If I had a Duo 1, I would be saying the same thing. But,
yeah, since I have a Duo 2 also, it's obviously not a big deal for me. But having a Duo 2, I also know what you gain by going to Android 11.
And they're going to get some stability improvements that camera is going to work better.
Hopefully.
Hopefully that thing that they're doing with the camera there, that's.
I wonder if they are, because there's going to be a Duo 2 update, Android 11, obviously with an Android 11. I wonder if they're just building another build and going to release that. So they've got a build they submitted to Google, right? They have to get certification that Android 11 can run on a device and be secure. Well, once that certification is done, then all they have to do is update it, as long as it stays on Android 11. I just kind of wonder if they're going to wait until they release the Duo 2 update and it's the same version, the same build of Android 11. And that might be why it hasn't come out yet. I don't know.
It's so much will we ever know? It's so much speculation that
we'll never know.
It's and I'm gonna be honest. I think it's really more or less politics.
You think?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. These companies are frenemies. They're not friends and they're not enemies, because to some degree they need each other. Really, more Microsoft needs more Google, but they're frenemies. So Google's going to come out with that Pixel book or notebook or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
Microsoft, and their software is going to be perfected maybe not iteration 1, but some iteration 1.5 software updates. It's going to be perfected. Android's going to be perfected to work on that Pixelbook, and Microsoft's going to feel abandoned with the Duo, which was the original foldable phone. So, you know, that's going to be a sticky situation. This is the reason why Microsoft's going to have to bone up, get the correct people on the build team that can get stuff done, and
I think
people
they've
who are
got to
committed to the
determine.
goal.
See, I think there's a question still, and maybe this is just me, but I don't believe Android's a long-term vision for this device.
Okay, well, see, here's the problem, and you may be right, but here's the problem. When's the last time you've been to the Windows App Store?
Well, personally, I think that Samsung would, no matter what some people want to think, Samsung would drop out of the Google monopoly if they could. And now Samsung's got the clout now that developers, if Samsung said we're going to do our own Android and we're not going to, we don't care that we have the Play Store, we're going to do our own apps. We're going to do our own OS, excuse me. It'll run Android apps, and we'll have our own Play Store so you can put your Android apps in it. You know that all the developers would put their Android apps in a Samsung store.
I don't know. They tried that now. I mean, look at the.
Well, they don't require it, but if they said so, if you had that disconnect of the Google Play Store, so if Samsung did their own OS, whatever it is, but it could also run Android, Google would not certify that to host the Play Store. So now all of a sudden, Android apps are not going to be able to be on a Samsung device. Samsung owns the Android market. They are the Android
they own the phone, but the infrastructure that everybody's using is Google.
It's Google, exactly. So, and it's that Play Store. So I'm just mentioning that. I'm just thinking that I think there's a probability that Samsung could do something. And if Samsung did something, that would give Microsoft a store they could use. And then they could do their Windows 11 with Android support. Microsoft can't do it by themselves, so developers would laugh at them.
2017 or 2018, one of them. Samsung, I had some conversation with Samsung about a product that a company that I created called Conversa.
Mm-hmm.
Conversa is, about natural language translation, real time chat, and all that in your native language, and it's really, really cool stuff. And not to say too much, but I had some conversation with Samsung, and they really liked the technology. The problem was Google,
right?
And they told me, they said, well, our phones are in a Google cycle, and we'd like to use your technology, which is going to put us at odds with Google.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we'll get back to you. 3 months later, they came back and said, well, as much as our technicians think it's great and be great to do and all of that, we'd be different. We can't do it. And it's disappointing for me, but
right.
I suck a ton of money into that. But, I just, I don't know. I think for anybody who's in that Google ecosystem, it's going to be really tough. That's what I think. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're 100% right. And I don't think there's but one company that could possibly make it work, and that'd be Samsung. Nobody else could, because we've seen too many people fail. We've seen too many people fail that even stayed in bed with Google. HTC being an example. So no, I think you're right, but I do think that Samsung is just slowly, they've got that mass, they've got a large mass of users now that maybe I'm being hopeful because I'd like to see that Google stranglehold busted. Android was a great concept when it was truly open source. Now it's open source, but it's not.
It was not really. They should stop saying that. The thing that I think about the open source is great. I'm an open source fan. It also invites a lot of instability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look how many Linux distributions there are.
Yep.
I mean, some of them are fantastic.
Yep.
But it's a lot of junk out there too.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a lot of junk. So I did download, as we concluded, the 3D model. I may give it a shot. Maybe I'll punch a hole in it.
Yeah, definitely needs a hole punched in it for the USB. It did not need the buttons covered. Somebody made a comment about that, but I don't think the buttons need to be covered.
Well, right here it looks like the buttons are not covered. What do you mean?
That's right, and I don't think they need to be. I think you'd have a hard time 3D printing workable. Well, I don't even want to say that because I've used cases that the buttons still, the buttons function very well. So you probably could 3D print something, but I don't know that that's a big problem because the chance of damaging the button with the case being out so far, I think, is low. I think you got to look at probabilities of damage as you engineer this thing.
What I would want is, is not just slide it on, but I wanted to clip on where it don't slide off.
Exactly. I don't want it coming off. I don't want it to come off easy.
That's the challenge. But
right.
Again, I hadn't used my 3D printing skills and my 3D printer in a year. It's been sitting in the corner collecting dust.
Well, maybe you got something to print something. Let's see what you come up with. There's another Thingiverse thing on there that is a pen holder. Somebody did a pen holder. They did a case with a pen holder.
If a guy can print some 3D printed stands and sell them, Mike can print some cases.
Yep. I would think so. That's the next thing I'm going to print is a stand for this HDMI USB, docking station. I need to do that. I want to get a printer. Okay.
Well, Dale, has been great.
Yeah. So if you like doing this, maybe we should try to do at least once a week.
Well, we'll see what we can do. Schedules get full, and my life is pretty hectic. But we'll
understand.
We'll figure out something.
See what you want to do, and we'll work something out. All right.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Enjoy your evening.
You too. Have a good evening.
Okay, bye.